I have a weird love-hate relationship with Assassin's Creed Odyssey. On one hand, there's a lot to love, a stunning world, the freedom to play how you want, ancient Greece, and an overall fun experience. I even made a video expressing how I felt this game was underrated, not because it was amazing, but because it was my comfort game, even for all the wrong reasons. However, there are plenty of downsides too, enough to count on both hands. It's part of an ongoing franchise, but somehow it just doesn't seem to fit in. Let me get this out of the way. This video is not me saying this game sucks. I'm just pointing out the negatives because, believe it or not, every game has its flaws. Even a masterpiece like The Witcher 3, which I consider my favorite game of all time, has its issues. In fact, I plan to make the opposite of this video by going over the great things about Assassin's Creed Odyssey. If you want to see my true feelings about this game, check out my review. It surprisingly did quite well. I want to explore what makes this game so divisive and disliked by many. Let's start with something that doesn't make much sense to me. Imagine this. We have Assassin's Creed Syndicate set in the 19th century, the closest the mainline games have ever come to modern times. Fast forward 2 years, and we get Assassin's Creed Origins, set in 1949 BC. We went from almost modern times back to ancient times, showing us the birth of the Hidden Ones, which was a cool concept. So, why would Ubisoft decide to go even further back in time with the next game, right after showing us the birth of the Hidden Ones? It just doesn't add up. Let's be honest, Assassin's Creed Odyssey doesn't quite mesh with the Assassin's Creed name. It feels more like Ubisoft wanted to create an ancient Greek fantasy RPG and slap the Assassin's Creed name on it to sell it. They focused on the Isu lore, which isn't a bad thing, but it's clear they were banking on the name to sell. And sell it did, over 10 million copies, which is impressive. Now, moving away from pre-release aspects, let's dive into some parts of Assassin's Creed Odyssey that many people can relate to. First, the lack of motion capture, mocap. The fact that this game had very little mocap meant some pretty bad things. Valhalla barely had mocap, Mirage barely had mocap, and I hope Assassin's Creed Shadows has mocap. Mocap involves recording the movements of real actors to create realistic character animations. It enhances the storytelling experience of a game. Imagine if a game like The Last of Us had Odyssey's lack of mocap, the emotional connection with Joel wouldn't be the same. That's exactly how I feel about the characters in Assassin's Creed Odyssey. We can blame this on Sergei Hascoët, who supposedly said Ubisoft games had too many cutscenes, which bumped up production costs. Thankfully, he's not around anymore. Playing Odyssey, then Valhalla, and hopping back to Origins really puts into perspective how the animation quality dipped. In Origins, it feels like they used mocap for nearly all story cutscenes. But in the 2 games after, I can probably count on one hand the cutscenes with mocap. Another issue is the lack of a cinematic trailer for Assassin's Creed Odyssey, a first for the series. These trailers are important, they ramp up excitement and set the tone for the game. Now, let's shift focus to the gameplay and design choices in Assassin's Creed Odyssey. Unlike previous games, Odyssey takes a more RPG-driven approach. Yes, Origins is classed as an RPG, but Odyssey emphasizes leveling, skill trees, and grinding for gear, elements only lightly touched upon in earlier games. Some players appreciate this deeper RPG integration, seeing it as a fresh evolution of the franchise. However, others feel it strays too far from the roots, turning into a generic open-world RPG. Odyssey has one of the biggest worlds in the series, full of cities, oceans, and mountains. It looks incredible but can be overwhelming. There are so many side quests, and many feel like filler. Compared to Origins, there's a stark contrast in writing quality, especially for side quests. Odyssey is a case of quantity over quality. This abundance of quests can water down the story, especially if you prefer more straightforward plots. Do you prefer smaller, focused cities like Venice, Florence, or Paris, or large, expansive worlds like Origins and Odyssey? Now, let's talk about combat and enemies. In Odyssey, enemies can feel really tanky, soaking up damage no matter how much you attack them. This changes the combat dynamics compared to Origins, where enemies felt more manageable. In Odyssey, you often end up in prolonged battles that test your patience as much as your skill. To make enemies feel less tanky, you need to grind levels and upgrade your gear. It's a bit of a grind, but as you level up, previously tough enemies will go down easier. Mercenaries are another divisive aspect. Their constant interference can be quite tedious. No matter how stealthily you move or where you hide, a mercenary will eventually show up. This disrupts gameplay and breaks immersion. It feels like they have some supernatural ability to pinpoint your location without any logical reason. The mercenary system initially seems amazing, but the charm wears off quickly. The conquest system is another disappointment. The battles repeat themselves and don't push the main story forward. Picking a side in the war feels more like a cosmetic choice than something that genuinely affects the game's outcome. The loot is alright, but who controls a region doesn't change much in the game. The random chance of bumping into mercenaries with specific strengths and weaknesses can be more annoying than exciting. The game's handling of gear is also frustrating. There's a constant cycle of swapping out equipment as you level up, making it feel pointless to upgrade your current items. It's a common frustration among players, constantly tweaking loadouts to meet new challenges. Another major talking point is the lack of a hidden blade. Instead, we get to wield the Spear of Leonidas, which ties into the story. The hidden blade is a symbol of the Assassin's Creed series, representing the assassination gameplay at its heart. Odyssey's setting predates the Assassin Brotherhood, explaining the absence of the hidden blade. But historically, the hidden blade was around during the game's timeline, making its absence questionable. Lastly, the story and its ending are major letdowns for me. Despite the beautiful world, the story doesn't hit hard or feel important. The interactions with family members feel shallow, and the good ending is underwhelming. After finishing the story, I had to backtrack to side missions to piece together what was missed. The hunt for cultist targets, which should have been fun, turned into a tedious grind. Overall, Assassin's Creed Odyssey tried to do too much by having separate endings for its major questlines: the cult, your family, and Atlantis. It needed a fourth ending or an epilogue to tie everything together, which kind of happened with the Atlantis DLC but not quite. That brings me to the end of the video. I know this video focused on the negatives, but don't worry, I will be making a video focusing on the positives. Please don't think I hate this game, I actually like it. What are your thoughts on Assassin's Creed Odyssey? Be honest with your answers, considering it's an Assassin's Creed game and how most fans will judge it. If you don't care about the franchise but like Odyssey, fair play. I hope you had an amazing time. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to hit that subscribe button, and with that said, I'll see you in the next one.